Okay, so we're going to divert before we get into the battle itself. We've been watching these documentaries and you've been seeing some of these weapons that we've been using. And so I thought, hey, why not divert a little bit and look at some of the main weapons we used in the war. So this weapon up here in the top left corner is called the Browning automatic rifle, the B.A.R. or B.A.R. And it shot a 30 caliber bullet, the same 30 caliber bullet that was used in the M1 Garand, which is the typical rifle of the American infantrymen in the war. So a 30 caliber bullet packs a lot of punch. If you ever shot like a 30-06, like a hunting rifle, that's the same caliber that this is in. It's a big bullet, takes down big game in hunting in America. It's still a very popular bullet today. Use it to kill bear, moose, elk. It's got a ton of stopping power. But this is an automatic rifle, meaning that you can hold the trigger down and it will shoot. Versus this M1 Garand, which was semi-automatic, which means you'd have to pull the trigger every time to get it to fire, but you didn't have to like rack a shell in. Over here, this is the 45 caliber Thompson submachine gun, or Tommy gun. So it's like the gangster gun of the 1920s. And so it could come with a bandolier here, or I don't know if that's the right term, but the round magazine, or the stick magazine, which is what they used in the war because these were not very reliable if they got dirty. Then up here is the M1 carbine, which was used by paratroopers and people more in the rear. So I'll show you some demonstrations here. Yeah, hold on. Here we go. Demonstration. I don't want this tab. Okay. All right, so here is the Browning automatic rifle. I'll show this guy shooting at a bunch of cinder blocks or cement blocks with his B.A.R. Feel like there should be sound. I'm not here. So.
Around Europe and everywhere, World War II, Korea. Whew. Of course, it has a handle, but man, that is a load. I'd forgotten how heavy it was because we did shoot the semi-automatic version quite a lot when we.
Okay, I don't know if you heard all the audio there, but I'm not going to back it up. So that's just how things go. So let's take a look at, nope. This is M1 Garand demonstration.
Garand is the greatest battle implement ever devised. Those words are as true today as when they were first spoken by General Patton back in 1945. Whether it's defending your homestead or defending the homeland, nothing beats the classic M1. This all-American favorite first came to life in the early 1930s. John C. Garand designed it free of charge for the U.S. government as a way of apologizing for being Canadian. The Garand went on to arm our boys in World War II, ensuring an Allied victory. Those Japanese and Germans never knew what hit them thanks to the semi-automatic action. That's 8 shots of 30-06, as quick as you can pull the trigger. Later rifles like the M14 and the M16 have extended clips that hold even more than 8 rounds. Now, normally I'd say bigger is better, but I never really saw the need for all that ammunition. The M1 Garand separates the rifle men from the rifle boys. If you can't get the job done in 8 shots, maybe you need to head back to the practice range. For those rare circumstances that call for more firepower, the M1 Garand comes with its own early warning system. When the last round is fired, the clip ejects from the action with that signature sound the Garand is so famous for. That ping lets you know the music has stopped, but the song isn't over yet. It's time for your Colt to come out and play a solo with 8 man-stopping rounds of 45 ACP. Some of the misguided young fellas at my local gun club have taken a liking to the M1 carbine. Think of this handy little piece as a miniaturized version of the real M1. It was developed for use by backup support personnel like jeep drivers, chaplains, and pacifists. It feeds from 15 or 30 shot clips. Why so many rounds? Some say it's because the 30 carbine cartridge is so weak and ineffective. Or it could be that you just can't expect a penny-wasted draft dodger to learn much during marksmanship training. The carbine is feather light. That's convenient if you're arming secretaries and nurses, but I like my rifles heavy. Heavy is reliable, because I know even if the rifle jams, I've still got a 10-pound club ready to help me finish what I started. Let's try an experiment. We're going to see how this German helmet holds up against the little M1 carbine. Then we'll give it all we've got with the M1 Garand. First, the M1 carbine. Not bad. Now let's try the real M1.
All right, he goes a little crazy there. So we'll move on. Look at the Tommy gun. So there's the one with the round clip that they didn't really use in World War II.
Gun's hot, ready to go. So we're gonna go ahead and just do some singles. All right. Flip the gun to auto, 1921 configuration.
That's pretty impressive. Show you, he does a lot of talking, so we're going to skip ahead. This is where he uses a stick magazine that holds 30 rounds.
We're locked in. Again, open bolt machine gun, locked to the rear. This gun's ready to go. 30 rounds.
Okay. And this will show you how tedious it was to load one of those big round magazines.
Okay, so this is the internal of the drum magazine. I just want to show how it is loaded and how it operates. I've loaded most of the drum, but you can see the sides of the internals, how that guides the round as it is fired. So this is the drum, this is the rotor. I've already put in 45 rounds, and you can see, just to show how it's loaded, how you would do this, and then understand that in combat situation, debris is flying. Any little dirt and debris would cause this to jam, which is why this was not ideal for combat. It was used in World War II, but that's where they also then replaced it as rapidly as they could with a 30-round stick magazine instead of the 20-round. This is the drum key. It snaps on, and then with the older 1921 Thompson had their higher rate of fire, you would wind this to 11 clicks. With the 1928 conversion that weighted the bolt and slowed the rate of fire down, you would only wind it to 9 clicks for this to be able to function. And that's what I want to do right now. So we're going to shoot it with the tighter bolt.
What a pain, huh? Okay, you get the idea. Then we can watch him shoot it one more time, maybe. Using a more updated version of the gun. More like what they used in World War II. Amazing how it can go through 30 rounds. Notice too that they're using 45 caliber. It's a pistol round. They're shooting through a submachine gun. So like the M1 Garand and the Browning automatic rifle used a full-size rifle cartridge, and this shoots a pistol cartridge, which means it has a lot less powder, a lot less power as far as over a long distance. So this is more of a short range weapon, not something you could fire for long ranges. Okay, let's go back to the PowerPoint just a second. All right, so we looked at these guns. Now we also had heavy weapons that we used in World War II. So up in the top left corner, we have the 1917 Browning 30 caliber machine gun that's water cooled. So that's what this big cylinder is. It's a it's water to keep the barrel cool, because otherwise the barrel will overheat and warp from all the bullets going through it. That was really heavy. So Browning made a updated version called the 1919. That was an air cooled. See all these ports here? That's air, the hot air escape from the barrel. And then down here we have one of our main artillery pieces, a 105 millimeter howitzer. That's what we could lob shells for miles to, you know, hit bunkers or men or whatever the case may be. This is a mortar, 60 millimeter mortar, and it shoots these little things that look like little rockets. And it's that high trajectory launch over terrain when you can't see your enemy. And these things explode. They can explode kind of like a grenade, sending little metal fragments, shrapnel, into your enemy. And this down here is the 50 caliber, the deuce, the M2. This thing was multi-purpose. We used them on Jeeps, we used them anti-aircraft, we used them all over the place, and it's still in use today. Very reliable, big machine gun. 50 caliber is huge. So you probably want to see demonstrations of these too. Why not? So let's see what we got here. Come on, you dumb thing. Hello. Trying. I don't know. Okay, sorry. So here's just an old video on a 60 millimeter mortar.
In a division which have a high angle of fire and a curved trajectory. In other words, the mortars and the howitzers. Because of their high angle of fire, mortars and howitzers can reach into hostile trenches and emplacements and engage targets on reverse slopes.
That's an example of a mortar trajectory.
The sequence of sounds heard by a soldier under fire from a mortar or howitzer differs from the sequence he hears when under fire from a flat trajectory weapon. When a mortar or howitzer is fired, the soldier first hears the sound of the projectile as it moves toward him. Next, he hears the report of discharge of the piece. And finally, he hears the strike and burst of the projectile.
There, we'll skip forward.
At ranges up to 1,000 yards. The mortar can be fired at the rate of 18 rounds per minute for long periods.
See what he's doing there is he's adjusting how much powder is on the bottom, which determines the range. Then he activates the round.
The mortar is distinctive. Sounds like a cough. Listen to it.
Basically like launching a grenade high up into the air so it explodes down on your enemy. All right, hopefully you get the idea there. All right, this is the 30 caliber Browning machine gun.
A little firepower demo here in a minute, motivated by an email that I got from Randy in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, who writes, "Hey Gunny, like that show about the 50 caliber Browning, but what about its little brother, the 30 caliber light machine gun?" Well, Randy, here's the skinny on the 30 cal. John M. Browning was one of America's foremost firearms designers, and as early as 1917, he was supplying the U.S. military with water-cooled 30 caliber automatic weapons. The guns were good, but they were heavy. So, in the 1930s, Browning came out with a radically new air-cooled, lightweight machine gun called the M1919A4, or for short, A4. It only weighed about 40 pounds with a tripod, less than half the weight of the old water-cooled machine gun. But the baby Browning could still get off 400 or 500 rounds a minute. In World War II, nearly 500,000 A4s were produced, and it was the bread and butter weapon of the ground pounder. Of course, the A4 could just as easily be fired from a vehicle. All right, check this out.
Legit.
Ah! Give me some more watermelons out there. Yeah, all right.
All right, that's pretty cool. So he's a retired, well, yeah, retired Marine shooting a 30 caliber. Let's see, the howitzer.
5mm howitzer M101A1 is the light artillery weapon of the infantry division. Capable of close and continuous fire, it normally functions in a direct support role. Stability is provided by the split trails, which are spread to emplace it in the firing position. This 2.5 ton weapon can be manhandled by its 8-man crew and emplaced in about 3 minutes. On-carriage fire control instruments include the range quadrant, used in laying for elevation, and the panoramic telescope, or laying for direction. Minimum elevation is minus 89 mils. Maximum elevation is 1,156 mils. A pintle-type mechanism allows 809 mils of traverse. This weapon fires semi-fixed conventional ammunition, hurling its 33-pound projectile to a maximum range of 11,000 meters. Like other field artillery howitzers, it also has direct fire and high-angle capabilities. Maximum rate of fire is 10 rounds per minute for 3 minutes, and the sustained rate of fire is 3 rounds per minute. There are 3 batteries of 6 towed 105mm howitzers in each battalion, and 3 battalions in the infantry division artillery.
Right, so you're taking these guns, shoot a really big shell, launch them for long distances. Oftentimes you have a spotter who's using a radio to communicate to the people working the guns. So you can say fire at these coordinates on these enemy, and they'll fire around, and then if it hits where they want it to hit, they'll say fire for effect, and they'll just keep firing shells until the radio guy tells them to stop. So this was a huge advantage we had in the war, setting up our artillery to lob shells down on our enemy. All right, and last but not least, the M2, the deuce.
Meet the Browning M2 50 caliber machine gun, affectionately known as deuce. The first version of this machine arrived on the scene at the end of World War I. Its simple, reliable design and its ability to smash through steel and concrete is why the M2
He's shooting
is
through a
still being
cement
used
wall.
by armies in every corner of the world. Let's see how it works. Bullets linked by small metal clips are loaded into the breech. When you cock the gun, a round is snatched up and dropped into the chamber. Now the firing cycle begins. On the M2, the trigger is pushed. This starts a chain reaction that sends the firing pin flying towards the back of the shell. When it hits, a primer is ignited, setting off a small explosion. Up to 55,000 pounds per square inch of force is generated when the shell ignites in the chamber. The force of the explosion slams the breech bolt back. This action forces another round into the chamber, and the process starts over again, all driven by the energy exploding from the shell. After the bullet fires, the extractor grabs the rim of the empty shell, and a spring-loaded ejector punches it out the bottom of the gun. The M2 is air-cooled. Its open breech allows heat and smoke from the firing cycle to vent. Inside the barrel, a process called rifling has grooved a pathway roughly one turn every 30 centimeters. As the bullet is forced through the barrel, it follows the corkscrew path. The path puts a spin on the bullet that maximizes its flight accuracy and increases the damage on the receiving end.
It's like throwing a spiral with a
The bullet
football.
easily breaks the sound barrier, exiting the barrel at 900 meters per second. That's over twice the speed of sound. Not bad for a round this big. And the M2 can fire a bunch of different types of ammo. Standard ball, tracer, armor-piercing incendiary tracers. These guys have strengthened casings and a hard nose to punch holes in thicker armor. The tracers leave a flash of light from a small pyrotechnic charge in their base. Once ignited, it burns like a firework, making the bullet visible to the naked eye. Tracers are usually loaded 1 in every 5 rounds. This helps the gunner visually follow the path of the bullets. And the M2 is capable of firing up to 500 rounds per minute. But at that rate, the barrel would quickly overheat and begin to warp. So in standard combat, the gun is fired at a rate of about 40 rounds per minute, in short bursts. Uncompromising firepower and combat reliability are just 2 reasons why this machine has withstood the test of time.
Well, how do you like that action? Hopefully you learned a thing or two about the weapons of the war. From our lighter weapons that our common troops would carry to our heavier weapons that we use against our enemies.